Hello, knowledge seekers. In this episode of 20-Minute Books, we delve into the critical and compelling work, The End of Poverty by Jeffrey Sachs. Published in 2005, this book serves as an enlightening guide to permanently eradicating extreme poverty worldwide. Sachs shares a radical yet simple proposition. With a modest, wisely allocated investment, it's possible to dramatically transform the lives of millions languishing in poverty. Jeffrey Sachs, a reputed economist, became a professor at Harvard University at the tender age of 28. Currently, he helms the Earth Institute at Columbia University and offers his expertise as a special advisor on the Millennium Development Goals to the Secretary General of the United Nations. With such notable credentials, Sachs provides a well-informed and feasible strategy to confront one of humanity's most persistent issues. The End of Poverty is an essential read for anyone determined to contribute to the global eradication of extreme poverty. It is also highly recommended for individuals interested in politics, international relations, and charitable work. Join us as we explore Sachs's visionary approach to ending poverty and reflect on how even small contributions can lead to significant changes in the global socio-economic landscape. The End of Poverty, Economic Possibilities for Our Time. Introduction: Unlocking the Path to End Global Poverty, a Roadmap for Change. In a world brimming with wealth and resources, the stark contrast of enduring poverty in many developing nations poses a puzzle that begs to be solved. Why, despite the abundance available, do vast segments of humanity continue to live in destitution? The situation may seem paradoxical, with substantial wealth existing side by side with crushing poverty, leading many to resign to the belief that such disparity is somehow natural or inevitable. However, this resignation overlooks the tangible steps that can be taken toward eradicating global poverty, steps that do not necessarily involve simply pouring more aid into developing countries. This narrative often suggests a failure of traditional aid models, where despite generous contributions, the specter of poverty continues to loom large across numerous societies. The key to unlocking the mystery lies not in questioning whether we should extend help or increase funding, but rather in understanding the root causes behind the persistence of poverty and identifying effective strategies for sustainable development. It's about reshaping our approach to aid, ensuring that support reaches those who need it most, and fostering conditions that allow impoverished nations to thrive on their own terms. This exploration delves into the transformative journeys of nations like China and India, which have made significant strides in uplifting their populations out of poverty. Their successes hint at a combination of factors: economic reform, targeted policies, and the leveraging of globalization, to name a few. These examples serve not only as beacons of hope, but as blueprints that, when adapted to fit the unique circumstances of other developing countries, could potentially replicate similar outcomes elsewhere. Crucially, it also casts a spotlight on a troubling reality: the misdirection and insufficiency of aid. A startlingly small fraction of aid actually makes its way to the grassroots level, where it is most needed. This inefficiency underscores the necessity for a more transparent, accountable, and targeted approach to aid distribution, ensuring that funds serve their intended purpose in combating poverty at its core. Moreover, the discussion brings to light the geographical challenges faced by many poor countries, particularly those that are landlocked. Lacking access to international waters and thus to global markets, these nations face inherent disadvantages that exacerbate their economic struggles. Addressing these geographical hurdles requires innovative solutions and concerted international support to create alternative avenues for trade and development. In summation, the path to ending global poverty is neither straightforward nor easy, but it is undoubtedly navigable. By understanding the underlying causes of poverty, re-evaluating the efficacy of traditional aid, and learning from the success stories of nations that have overcome similar challenges, we can chart a course toward a future where poverty is no longer an inescapable reality but a problem of the past. Through collective action, strategic planning, and unwavering commitment, the end of poverty is within our grasp, a goal that's not only noble but entirely achievable. Part 1: The Shadows of Prosperity: Tracing the Roots of Global Inequality. The journey from the onset of the Industrial Revolution to the present day has carved deep chasms of inequality across the globe. It's an era that heralded unprecedented advancements and wealth, but paradoxically, also cemented the foundations of extreme poverty that billions continue to grapple with. In the landscapes of wealth, countries flush with resources bask in the luxury of excess, consuming far beyond their needs. This stands in stark contrast to the bitter daily struggle faced by those in the world's poorest nations, where securing a meal for survival is a relentless challenge. This disparity is starkly illustrated by the heart-wrenching truth that malnutrition claims the life of a child every 5 seconds, adding up to 18,000 young lives each day. But this staggering inequality wasn't always the status quo. Just 200 years prior, poverty was a near universal condition, sparing few distinctions based on geography. Back then, the gap between Europe's poor and Africa's impoverished was negligible, painting a very different portrait of global wealth distribution. The transformative period of the Industrial Revolution, however, marked the beginning of a drastic split. Innovations such as the steam engine not only revolutionized the production of goods, but, together with steam-powered trains and ships, propelled trade to new heights. The emergence of electricity and telecommunications further accelerated progress, fueling a global economic expansion that predominantly benefited the Western world. This era of rapid advancement saw certain nations surge ahead, laying the foundations for enduring prosperity, while others were left to languish in a state of stagnation. Consequently, this divergence has left an indelible mark on the global landscape, with approximately 1 billion individuals enduring extreme poverty on less than $1 a day. Another 1.5 billion people navigate the precarious existence of moderate poverty, surviving on barely enough to meet the most basic needs. Luxuries such as clean running water and proper sanitation remain elusive dreams. Moreover, there exists a global middle class, around 2.5 billion strong, who, while enjoying access to basic comforts like shelter and television, and possibly even a motorbike, are far removed from the opulence of the world's wealthiest. This mosaic of global wealth and deprivation prompts a pressing question. What mechanisms have allowed such profound disparities to persist, entrenching poverty as a seemingly insurmountable fixture in certain regions of the world? Unraveling this question demands a deep dive into the historical, economic, and political fabric that has shaped our modern world, illuminating the path toward potential solutions for a more equitable global society. Part 2: The Inescapable Web of Poverty: Understanding the Multifaceted Trap. As the echoes of the Industrial Revolution continue to reverberate across the globe, the chasm between the affluent West and the struggling developing nations only deepens. But what factors consign these nations to seemingly perpetual poverty? A closer look reveals that many are ensnared in a complex, multifaceted dilemma known as the poverty trap, a cruel cycle that stifles any hope of economic advancement. At the heart of this quandary is the absence of essential resources needed for growth and prosperity. Yet the poverty trap extends beyond mere scarcity, manifesting in more nuanced challenges that together form an almost impenetrable barrier to progress. Geographical disadvantages play a pivotal role. For numerous impoverished nations, their location poses significant obstacles, whether it's an excessively hot climate that undermines agricultural yield, or rugged terrain that complicates farming and inflates transportation costs. Geography can severely limit a country's economic prospects. State governance, or rather the lack thereof, further exacerbates the problem. Economic growth is stunted in environments where infrastructure, the lifelines of development such as roads, education systems, and communication networks, is neglected or underdeveloped. Without these critical supports, fostering a conducive business climate becomes an elusive goal. Innovation and the preservation of intellectual talent presents another hurdle. In small, impoverished societies, those who manage to attain an education frequently migrate to wealthier countries in search of better opportunities, leaving behind a void in skilled human resources. This phenomenon, known as brain drain, deprives these nations of the intellectual capital necessary for innovation and growth. Lastly, demography poses a formidable challenge. In many developing countries, high birth rates burden families and economies alike. Large families often struggle to provide education for all their children, thereby perpetuating a cycle of poverty as successive generations lack the skills and knowledge to break free from their economic shackles. The interplay of these factors highlights the complexity of the poverty trap, underscoring the fact that initiatives aimed at alleviating poverty must adopt a multifaceted approach. Effective strategies must consider the intricate web of challenges these nations face, targeting not just one, but all the underlying causes of their impoverishment. Only by addressing each strand of this web can we hope to untangle the knots of poverty that hold these countries back, paving the way for a future where prosperity is within reach of all nations. Part 3. The Steep Climb to Wealth. Why Economic Growth Eludes Poor Countries. The timeless adage, "It takes money to make money," encapsulates a universal truth that resonates as deeply with nations as it does with individuals. The essence of economic prosperity hinges on the ability to accumulate capital. It's through this accumulation that investments are made, leading to more wealth, and ideally, a self-sustaining cycle of growth and reinvestment. Yet this seemingly straightforward path to prosperity is fraught with hurdles. For wealth accumulation to meaningfully occur, economic growth must outpace both inflation, the diminishing value of currency, and population growth. When inflation erodes the purchasing power of a currency, or when a burgeoning population dilutes a country's surplus, the capacity for investment dwindles. Thus, a true increase in wealth demands that a country's economic surplus consistently overshadows the dual challenges of inflation and population expansion. While this formula for growth might appear manageable, even simple for affluent nations, it presents a daunting challenge for their poorer counterparts. In wealthier countries, robust economic surpluses couple with relatively low rates of inflation and population growth to create an environment conducive to reinvestment and economic expansion. Conversely, poor nations often grapple with the double whammy of high inflation and rapid population growth. Take Bolivia, for example, where hefty debt burdens compel the government to print money to settle its dues, inadvertently sparking hyperinflation by devaluing the currency. Meanwhile, these countries' economies stagnate, producing negligible surpluses that stand no chance against the twin forces of inflation and demographic pressures, thus miring them further in poverty. Adding insult to injury, on the rare occasion that a poor country achieves some measure of economic growth, the fruits of this labor are disproportionately enjoyed by the elite few. Those in positions of power, cradled by the advantages of education, existing capital, and networks, often siphon off a significant share of the growth, leaving the wider population little better off than before. This stark imbalance underscores the vast chasm between the rich and the poor, both within nations and on the global stage. It illuminates the intricate, often insidious challenges that keep impoverished countries in a stranglehold of stagnation. Against such backdrop, crafting policies and strategies that not only foster growth, but ensure its equitable distribution emerges as a paramount task for the global community, one that holds the key to unlocking a future where prosperity knows no borders. Part 4. Navigating the Maze. Tailored Solutions for Economic Recovery. In the quest to eradicate poverty, the allure of universal one-shot solutions is strong. Yet, the harsh reality is that no such panacea exists. Poverty, with its myriad causes and manifestations, differs so sharply from one country to the next that effective interventions must be as diverse as the problems they seek to solve. This requires a deep dive into the unique challenges each country faces, dismantling them one by one through carefully crafted solutions. Bolivia's economic saga provides a poignant illustration of this principle in action. In the 1980s, Bolivia was ensnared in the grips of hyperinflation, with rates spiraling beyond 24,000%. The exchange rate ballooned alarmingly, diluting the value of the peso against the dollar by millions within a short span. This financial turmoil was largely attributed to state overspending on oil and gas production, exacerbating a chronic budget deficit that, in turn, devalued the currency at an alarming rate. In response, Bolivia embraced a radical approach known as shock therapy, implementing a slew of immediate economic reforms aimed at curbing inflation. A key move involved halting government expenditure on oil production, a strategy that swiftly bridged the budget gap and stabilized the currency. Briefly, it seemed Bolivia had conquered its hyperinflation demon. Yet, this victory was short-lived. Bolivia soon found itself mired in economic crisis once more, revealing that the roots of its woes were far deeper and more intricate than mere fiscal imbalance. The country's challenges were compounded by its landlocked geography, limiting its export potential to high-value natural resources like rubber and tin. This reliance made Bolivia's economy exceedingly vulnerable to fluctuations in global commodity prices. Moreover, the specter of rising national debt loomed large, driven by the persistent mismatch between public spending and revenue. With these structural issues brought to light, Bolivia embarked on a more sustainable path to solvency, defaulting on its debts and overhauling its tax system to boost government income. Bolivia's journey underscores a critical truth. The battle against economic disparity requires nuanced country-specific strategies rooted in an understanding of each nation's unique challenges. From geographical constraints and deep-seated fiscal policies to the vagaries of international markets, the factors at play are as varied as they are complex. Consequently, achieving lasting economic recovery and prosperity hinges on the global community's ability to recognize and adapt to these diverse realities, crafting individualized solutions that address the root causes of poverty head-on. Part 5. From Humble Beginnings to Global Dominance, China's Astounding Transformation. China's meteoric rise from a primarily impoverished agrarian society to a leading global economic powerhouse is a compelling narrative of strategic governance and geographical serendipity. Not too long ago, in the 1970s, China was markedly different from the nation we recognize today. It was largely isolated, with a significant portion of its populace ensnared in the throes of poverty, and its economy was rigidly controlled by the state, shielded from foreign markets and influence. The turning point for China came through a series of pivotal government changes, coupled with the nation's inherent geographical advantages, setting the stage for an unparalleled economic ascension. At the forefront of these advantages is China's strategic location, boasting an extensive coastline peppered with massive harbors. This geographic boon became especially crucial when China pivoted towards embracing international trade, facilitating a smooth and efficient exchange of goods that bolstered economic growth and helped lift the country out of its previous state of economic stagnation. Government policies played an equally vital role in China's transformation. A significant move was the decision to deregulate the agricultural sector, transitioning from state-controlled to privately managed farming. This shift unleashed the agricultural potential of China, enhancing productivity and yield dramatically. It also catalyzed a shift in the labor force, as many agricultural workers found new opportunities in burgeoning industries thanks to the government's strategic foresight. Moreover, the Chinese government's initiative to establish special economic zones further turbocharged the nation's economic growth. By deliberately creating regions rich in job opportunities, especially in manufacturing, the government spurred an extensive internal migration. Thousands flocked to these zones in pursuit of better employment, laying the groundwork for a robust industry that attracted significant foreign investment, further amplifying the country's economic prosperity. This tale of transformation is not just a testament to China's strategic use of its natural and human resources, but also to the pivotal role of adaptive governance in economic development. Through astute policy reforms and leveraging geographical advantages, China has rewritten its narrative, evolving from a nation characterized by widespread poverty to a luminary on the global stage. China's journey serves as a compelling blueprint for other nations seeking to navigate their path out of poverty and towards economic success. Part 6. India's Leap Toward Prosperity, an open market and a focus on education. Much like China, India has scripted its own remarkable journey from pervasive poverty to economic prominence, courtesy of strategic market reforms and an unwavering commitment to education. The success story of India, however, unfolds with its unique historical and political nuances. To comprehend India's economic renaissance, it's vital to consider its colonial past. Under British rule, India's resources were extensively exploited, leaving the vast majority of its population in dire poverty. Independence in 1947 was a beacon of hope, yet the subsequent pursuit of democratic socialism under Prime Minister Nehru prioritized political ideals over economic pragmatism. Striving for self-sufficiency, the government exerted stringent control over economic activities, to the extent that mundane tasks like opening a bank account became bureaucratic ordeals. This approach resulted in a sluggish annual economic growth of just 1.9% until the 1970s. The winds of change began to blow with the advent of the Green Revolution in the 1960s, which catalyzed a dramatic increase in agricultural productivity and ensured India could finally feed its population without relying on imports. This pivotal moment laid the groundwork for broader economic liberalization that would unfold in the decades to come. By the 1990s, India was ready to embrace the opportunities of a globalized economy fully. The government relaxed its grip, opening vast swathes of the market to domestic and foreign investors alike. This liberalization, coupled with India's strategic emphasis on education, particularly in technology and engineering, set the stage for unprecedented growth. The Indian Institutes of Technology, IITs, emerged as crown jewels in India's educational landscape, churning out graduates who would leave indelible marks on the global technology sector. These alumni went on to establish powerhouse companies like Infosys and Tata, cementing India's status on the international stage. The service sector, too, witnessed explosive growth, with multinational corporations such as Microsoft leveraging India's pool of skilled yet cost-effective labor. These developments were instrumental in propelling India's economy to new heights, demonstrating the transformative power of market openness and educational investment. India's ascent to economic significance is a testament to the impact of embracing global markets and nurturing human capital. By shedding the shackles of rigid state control and fostering an environment conducive to learning and innovation, India has paved a path to prosperity that offers valuable lessons to other nations. Navigating the intricacies of economic development and poverty alleviation. Part 7. Brightening Africa's Future. A sustainable path out of poverty through developmental aid. Africa's enduring struggle with poverty has left many perplexed, especially considering the substantial amounts of developmental aid directed towards the continent over the years. Yet despite these efforts, vast swathes of Africa remain ensnared in poverty, a situation compounded by historical exploitation and challenging geographical realities. The colonial epoch inflicted deep wounds on Africa, with European powers depleting the continent's resources and leaving behind a legacy of inadequate educational systems, lackluster infrastructure, and fragile political and healthcare frameworks. These historical injustices laid a precarious foundation, further destabilized by Africa's daunting geographic hurdles, such as scarce navigable rivers and regions prone to severe droughts or floods. Given these challenges, the question arises, how can we effectively combat poverty in Africa? The answer lies in amplifying and strategically directing developmental aid, financial support tailored to foster social and economic growth. Surprisingly, this solution doesn't call for a radical overhaul of the global economic system or an unprecedented redistribution of wealth. Rather, it requires affluent nations to fulfill a pledge, commit at least 0.7% of their gross national income, GNI, towards developmental endeavors. Unfortunately, the stark reality is that a paltry sum of foreign aid actually reaches African communities, averaging merely $30 per person annually. This amount is further whittled down by administrative expenses, debt service, and relief operations, leaving a meager $12 per person for genuine developmental initiatives. Such insufficient funding thwarts efforts to secure the necessary surplus for crucial investments in technology and infrastructure, including machinery and fertilizers, which are indispensable for stepping up productivity and eradicating poverty. To recalibrate the trajectory of African nations towards sustainable growth and self-sufficiency, a relatively modest increase in aid is essential. Far from the realms of impossibility, an allocation of about $70 per individual each year could significantly alter the fortunes of many African communities, translating the vision of widespread poverty eradication from a distant dream to tangible reality. For instance, transforming Kenya from a landscape marred by deprivation to one thriving in prosperity would demand an investment of approximately $1.5 billion, a figure well within the realm of feasibility for the collective effort of the world's richest countries. Such targeted support would not only catalyze long-term growth, but also mark a critical step toward rectifying historical injustices and igniting a brighter future for the African continent. Therefore, the journey to dismantle the shackles of poverty gripping African nations hinges not on grandiose gestures or hollow pledges, but on the execution of a committed, thoughtful, and adequately funded plan of action, prioritizing the most urgent areas of development. The impact of such strategic aid could usher in an era where African villages and nations not only survive but thrive, crafting a legacy of resilience and prosperity for generations to come. Part 8. A global call to action, addressing poverty through systemic change. Understanding the crucial role of developmental aid in combating poverty unlocks one piece of the puzzle. Yet, achieving lasting solutions extends far beyond this. A transformative shift in international politics holds the key to unlocking a future where global poverty is consigned to history. Here's a roadmap for making this future a reality. A paramount step is addressing the debilitating debt that shackles many poor countries, rendering their escape from poverty virtually impossible. These debts, often insurmountable, inhibit nations from investing in their own growth and development due to the exorbitant costs of borrowing. Erasing such debts would alleviate these burdens, enabling countries to channel their resources towards building a prosperous future. Equally critical is fostering an environment where developing countries can enhance their economic positions through trade. Free trade is pivotal, affording these nations the opportunity to thrive by selling their goods on a global stage. However, current agricultural customs duties, imposed by powerhouses like the United States and the European Union, serve as formidable barriers. Dismantling these restrictions is essential for fostering equitable economic growth and eradicating poverty. Moreover, the domains of medicinal and agricultural research must pivot to address the challenges predominantly faced by the developing world. while vast sums are poured into combating diseases prevalent in affluent nations. Afflictions like dengue fever, which disproportionately impact poorer countries, remain grossly under-researched. A balanced focus that addresses the urgent health issues of these nations is imperative. The looming threat of climate change brings an additional layer of complexity, with nations in Africa finding themselves on the front line of this global crisis. Despite contributing minimally to the carbon footprint, African countries endure the brunt of climate change's devastating impacts, including droughts and floods that obliterate crops, ravage arable land, and undo crucial developmental progress. This stark disparity underscores the necessity for nations most responsible for greenhouse gas emissions to lead the charge in supporting vulnerable countries to navigate and mitigate the impacts of climate change. In summary, addressing global poverty demands a multifaceted approach that transcends mere financial aid. It calls for a systemic overhaul of international debt policies, trade practices, research priorities, and climate change interventions. This holistic strategy not only presents a moral imperative for wealthy countries, but also a practical blueprint for uplifting the entire globe. By joining forces to implement these measures, the international community can move closer to a world where poverty is no longer a grim reality, but a challenge of the past, resolved through solidarity, innovation, and shared responsibility. Final summary. Poverty, a pervasive and persistent issue that ensnares many nations, rendering the dreams and potentials of countless individuals unattainable. Yet, nestled within this sobering reality lies a beacon of hope, illuminated by the possibility of transformative change. The essence of this book revolves around a striking truth. The power to eradicate global poverty rests significantly within the hands of the developed world. Through strategic, mindful deployment of developmental aid, Western nations possess the capability to lift entire populations out of dire circumstances and into a realm of economic stability and prosperity. The chasm between the wealthy and the impoverished is not a mere consequence of fate, but a reflection of an inequitable distribution of global resources. This disparity underscores a compelling call to action for affluent countries, a call to invest in the world's collective future by extending a helping hand to those caught in the cruel grasp of poverty. The mechanism for such a monumental endeavor doesn't necessitate grandiose gestures or unfathomable sums of money. Instead, it asks for a commitment to direct a modest portion of national incomes towards development projects that address the root causes of poverty. This investment, however, goes beyond mere financial allocations. It demands a nuanced understanding of the distinct challenges faced by developing nations, ranging from geographical hurdles and infrastructural deficits to educational gaps and health crises. Moreover, it requires a concerted effort to reform international policies that unjustly hinder the economic growth of these countries, such as unfair trade barriers and the burdensome yoke of unsustainable debts. In essence, the message is one of potential and promise, highlighting a path forward where poverty is not an inescapable reality, but a challenge that can be overcome through collective will, compassion, and action. By prioritizing the welfare of the global community and recognizing the intrinsic value of every individual, developed nations have the opportunity to forge a legacy defined by equity, prosperity, and a shared commitment to a better world for all. Thank you for joining me today on this journey of learning and discovery as we explored the insights of another thought-provoking book in our growing library of knowledge. If you've enjoyed our time together, please take a moment to follow our podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and share 20-minute books with other knowledge seekers. Your support truly means a lot. Don't forget to join me again in the next episode, where we will delve into another enriching book. Until then, happy reading and happy listening.